Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Fluke here. Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 76. Today, we talk about a classic in the game of strength and conditioning. Theodor Hettinger, Physiology of Strength, written in 1961. And let me tell you a little something, a little background on this book. Of course, recommended from I don't want to say the only one, but guy by the name of Dan John talks about this book, cites this book. So I said, well, I think I should probably read this book because I respect that man's opinion and I respect everything that he does. So I picked it up. I bought it for the Kindle, dove through it, got some good notes from it, and we're going to go over these notes because there's some universal truths in it. And this is not even about, training athletes or anything like that. This is just the general population and how we could better maximize our time. And this book really wanted to answer the question that goes back. There was even cited some stuff from 1896, 1917. So we're talking over 100 years ago now. Muscle was required. They basically want to answer the question of, muscle was required to perform work beyond usual. Would it grow? So they wanted to figure out what the stimulus would be to grow muscle, to maintain strength, and as we'll get to later, how to do that with the most efficiency as possible. All right. Now, also going back here, this is 1961 now. Just keep in mind now, there's no social media. There's none of this crazy stuff where everybody could potentially have a platform to kind of market themselves. There's not a gym on every corner, right? This is Hettinger back in 61. There are almost as many exercise routines established as that are persons proposing them. What they're trying to outline in this book is basically a do-it-yourself approach to fitness so that, they have the science that supports it. And they're like, if you follow this, if you follow these guidelines, if you say we have the study, we have the research here, follow this, you could do it on your own, you're going to be able to maintain strength and build strength, right? And now when we talk about improving strength, fitness, whatever it may be, people are always wondering, you hear the question sometimes from the naysayers, like, why? Why do I have to do this, right? And Hettinger goes into it. Why? This is from the book now. Why should we try to develop more performance capacity when we are already able to carry out our daily responsibilities in the office, the factory, laboratory, at home? Here are 5 good reasons according to Hettinger. Our normal, we'll put that in quotes, our normal performance capacity with which we are so well satisfied is kept at the level of daily requirement only by our customary daily activity. Any additional stress will severely tax our reserves. So we're only capable of doing what we do on a normal day, right? And we could do that normal stuff because that is what we do every day. Anytime something else is thrown at us here, it's going to really tax our reserves. So that when we get back to our normal day, we're not going to be able to perform at a level to really optimize whatever I'm doing. So let's say, for example, this is going to be, say you're going through normal daily activities. Your car breaks down, you have to walk for a mile, then you have to walk back a mile, then you have to take your car somewhere else. That whole experience, as we're going to see, all of these systems are interconnected, right? You got the stress from one activity, you have the walk, which is physical activity, another stressor, and then when you try to get back to your normal life at work or with your family, you're going to be affected by that, all right? But if you train in a way that exceeds your daily activity level, you might be able to handle that situation a little bit better. Number 2 now, he gives us 5 reasons. Whatever we do is less fatiguing if we are in generally good physical condition. I could mow my lawn, I could push mow. If my lawnmower gets stuck somewhere, I could drag it out of the mud, all right? I could do these things because I'm in generally good physical condition, right? It makes life easier. These things don't wipe me out. I could pick up and move rocks. I could, move wood, lumber, tree fell down, got cut up. I could do that stuff, and I'm okay doing it. Right now, we're going to renovate the left side of our barn, the final third of the barn, and it's going to be a lot of picking heavy things up, moving floorboards, doing all of this stuff, right? Because I'm in generally good physical condition, we're going to be able to do this hopefully very well. Part 3, this one's interesting because it kind of applies. We have greater resistance against various types of illness. So we have greater resistance against various types of illness, okay? That's number 3. 1961, they knew this. Better physical condition is going to give me greater resistance against any kind of illness that's out there. Right now, we have an illness that's taken a hold of the world, and in this country here, I can't speak for the rest of the world. I don't really see a lot of stuff going on that's saying Let's improve our general physical conditioning, all right? If we could reverse some of these things, if I can improve my capacity to, if I could go for walks every day and get my lungs functioning a little bit better, get my heart pumping a little bit better, stronger, whatever it may be. If I could lose, 5% of my body weight, if I could, get my blood sugar in check and make some, some of this stuff we could do today, like right now. We could eat a little bit better today, We could go for a walk today. We don't have to do any kind of elaborate training system, right? We could start doing some of these things here that are going to have a big effect on us. And in this book here, they're going to talk about almost like a minimum effective dose for physical activity, all right? And, we could all eat a little bit better. We could all go for walks. That's something we could start today. And then we could take some of these concepts that we're going to get into from Hettinger here, and we can maybe apply that to the walks and the food thing, right? And now we're going to have a kind of a full system approach here to try to build a little bit of strength, okay? Next, part 4 builds off of that. If illness should come, the body can put up a better fight against it and speed the process of recovery. It's like, the rich get richer. What's that one line to whom much is given, whatever it may be, right? I'm not even going to try to speculate on that one. If illness should come, the body can put up a better fight against it and speed the process of recovery, right? So if we do get sick, if we're able to fight that thing a little bit better, our conditioning's better, our mentality might be a little bit stronger going in there, and we're going to be able to beat that illness. Number 5, last but not least, life becomes more enjoyable when we are in good physical condition. It is clear that man's professional and physical specialization must be accompanied by general physical fitness if he is truly to enjoy the fruits of these labors. Life's fun when you could go out for a walk, you could be out with your family, you could do activities all day and not get fatigued, not have leg pain, not be pouring sweat as you're out playing with your daughter. You don't have to take a break as your daughter's, I'm wrestling her in the living room, right? And we're going. Now, what's going to happen here? She's probably going to be able to go. She's going to run laps. She's going to do all of this stuff, jump, bounce. I have to be able to have that energy to stay with her, right? Life, and that stuff's fun, right? Playing is fun. Having the ability to play, I'm going to be able to do that if I'm in better general physical condition. All right? So those are, according to Hettinger, 5 things that I think we could apply today. Same concepts in 1961. But he's been studying this stuff since the 50s, right? He's put in 10 years of research for this book. So now we're going to back it up to 1951. We talked about in Bob Hoffman's, the podcast regarding Bob Hoffman the other day. These rules, man, they worked back then, 70 plus years ago. They could work today, all right? Moving on now. Like I already kind of previously mentioned here, all of the organic systems of the body are interdependent. When one system is affected, a reaction occurs in the other systems. Like I said about the car situation, right? That stress that I had from my car breaking down, that stress is going to work on one system of my body. Now, if I start combining some other stuff in there, some other stressors in there, all of these things become interrelated, right? And that one thing affects the other. And when we talk about it, just overall, like when we take in diet, when we take in sleep, when we take in exercise, all of those things are kind of interdependent. It's like I can't work out and follow the greatest workout plan in the world if my diet stinks. I can't eat the greatest diet in the world and expect the best results if my sleep stinks, right? So things like this, man, everything's kind of interdependent. Everything that we do is important. I can't work out so hard and then sit and say, I put in the best 50 minutes, 60 minutes. I was at the gym for 90 minutes and then sit on my butt for the rest of the day, because sitting on my butt is going to kind of negate whatever I just did in the gym, right? So all of these things work together. Again, one thing, man, it's like, I don't even know the best way to describe this thing here now, but we have to take that full-scale approach, that holistic approach to everything that we're doing in life. And we have to keep the big picture in mind, okay? Moving on here. Thomas Delorme, 1945. Delorme, I believe, he put in, I think he did, I think it was polio. Anyway, Delorme, Watkins, things like that, they really discovered this progressive resistance exercise and the benefits of building strength. So this was a quote from Delorme in 1945, which is in the book here. Increase in strength can be accomplished by few reps against strong resistance. Circulatory system can improve by many reps against slight resistance. These methods are not interchangeable. One cannot replace the other. So going into this, if I want to improve strength, I need to do few reps against strong resistance. 1945, this was taught. This was discussed, right? So kids out there that want to come in, why do we only do 2 reps, 3 reps? Yeah, you have to explain to them, hey, if the goal is going to be to build strength, right, we got to jack the weight up and push some steel. You know what I'm saying? Our circulatory system, man, our heart, all this stuff, we can do more reps, all right? This can improve by many reps against slight resistance. These methods are not interchangeable. I'm not gonna improve strength to its fullest ability if I'm doing many reps against slight resistance and vice versa, okay? One cannot replace the other. I think both systems need to be in place. Now, there's a lot of us out there. There's those power lifters, you know, they push heavy weight, right? But they might get tired walking up the steps. One cannot replace the other. You might need to get a little circulatory system training in by taking a long walk in the evenings or in the mornings, right? If all I'm doing is cardiovascular work, all right, I can't just rely on that cardiovascular, that HIIT training, that interval style training. I can't just do that all the time. I need to have some moments where I'm focusing on strength. But I think both need to be in a system here. And my thoughts on this changed before, you know, is always be like, hey, let's just push some weight here. Let's try to get strong. That'll help us out. But, you know, we got to have the ability to, you know, I went for a walk last week for an hour. I haven't done this walk in a while. And my calves are sore, my ankles are sore. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I can't even go for an hour walk anymore when I used to do this thing all the time. So that's something to keep in mind, all right? We gotta train both systems. We can't neglect one. They're not interchangeable, all right? So now, as we go from there, we start talking about how to train for sport a little bit here. And remember, this was written in 61. He did 10 years of research. So he talks about the 1952 Olympics. And when they did a study on this, you know, the Olympics are going on right now. When we talk about interchangeable systems and strength and, you know, the circulatory system, right? So the Olympic athletes have to train in a specific way. The power events, you know, the sprints, the jumps, the throws. You don't want to train cardiovascular. You don't want your whole training to be many reps against a slight resistance, to use their words, right? You're going to have to do a few reps against strong resistance. So 1952 Olympics, building off of that point. Most have a definitive respect for fatigue and do not train beyond it. So when we do these things here, when we start talking about few reps against strong resistance, we're not working out to the point where our body's about to break down and we can't complete another rep. We're going to get good solid work in, high quality reps, and then we're going to stop. All right, and every day our goal is going to be to do high quality reps, nothing sloppy, nothing to complete resistance. Nothing to complete fatigue. When we move to the circulatory system stuff, many reps against slight resistance, we have to be very mindful of our quality of rep there. We don't want to be doing junk reps. Because we're doing a lot of high reps, man, there's more room for error. More reps that you do of anything, the more potential room for error. So we got to be mindful of that. If I work to a point of fatigue, the chances of me making a mistake are going to greatly increase, and that's where injuries and things like that could occur. 1952, everybody. You know, you see high school football is about to start up here in Pennsylvania next week. You're going to be seeing high school football coaches pushing their athletes to the points of fatigue. The guys that I coach with are going to want to do that, right? But we got to be mindful of that. We got to speak up and be like, hey, we don't have to go. We don't have to do that. If we want to train high quality, man, we have to be fresh. We have to give these guys breaks. We got to be able to perform at high levels all the time. Why do you want to practice tired, sloppy, crappy reps? You know, let's use our practice tempo. Let's work at high rates of speed throughout practice. Let's push the pace a little bit here, and that'll be the way that we condition ourselves. And if we just push the pace a little bit more each week, each day, we're gonna be ready to go on Friday nights when our games are. Okay, we don't have to run these guys into the ground, run these gals into the ground if you're playing a sport like football, if you're a female football player, or even soccer or anything like that. We don't have to condition everybody to death if we want to, if we want to play the sport at a high level. 1952 Olympic athletes taught us this. Talking about girls, talking about boys now. You know, general muscle strength in women is about 2/3 of men. A lot of talk like this is going on now with the Olympics here, and one of the athletes, there's the transgender stuff. where the Olympic Committee allowed a transgender athlete to compete against females. So this was a male to female transition. Sorry for stretching there, guys. It's 6 a.m. over here. I guess I didn't get a good night's rest at Fox. Heard a Fox at about 4:41, woke me up. Anyhow, so male to female transition. Females are 2/3. This is Hettinger in 1961. Remember, women's strength at that time, based off of his studies, 2/3 of that of men. Was that in trained individuals or untrained individuals? I'm not sure, and that matters. All right, because you can look at the CrossFit Games now and you can see the weights that these girls are throwing up, and they're impressive, man. They're better than I could do. All right, and so we have to be careful on how we do this. Whether untrained, which is just people that don't work out, their strength levels might be about 2/3, and trained, that number might shift a little bit. All right, so keep that in mind. But where was I going with that? Just in general, if somebody's a male for long periods of time, the Olympic Committee is going to have to, if they allow the transgender athlete to compete, they have to really get their numbers down. And I think they kind of openly admitted that they have to reevaluate whatever their numbers are for their testosterone over the past 12 months. They have to be mindful of that number. And not mindful, they have to be thorough with it. There's not a lot of evidence, not a lot of research. So if they decide we're going to allow transgender athletes to compete, they better do it in a way that's kind of fair for everybody, if that's even possible. If you have 35 years of being a man and 1 year of transitioning to a female, where your testosterone levels are in check, you still have 35 years of experience as a male, where you have these high levels of testosterone. And as we'll see here, Hettinger talks here, talking about testosterone now. 20 weeks after testosterone injection, the performance capacity was still 35% higher than at the start. So just because you stop, now this is 20 weeks, they want you to do a year. The Olympic Committee is requiring a year of getting these numbers into a certain check. But 35 weeks, right? No, sorry, 35% increase in performance capacity 20 weeks after the last injection. 20 weeks after the last injection, all right? A third of a year, all right? So that's 3 months, we'll say. Still a 35% increase. Now, as we extrapolate that out a little bit, now let's talk about if you have higher levels of testosterone for long periods of time, you might have some more residual training. There might be a residual training effect over the long haul here. You might have more dense bones. You might have stronger ligaments, stronger joints, things of that nature. It's very dicey in terms of putting numbers, putting percentages on this stuff here. All right, moving on now, up to age 10. Now we're talking about, this is great, man, because this is kind of in my field of play here. I like working with the youth. I like having these fitness camps, fitness activities. Last night we have, a girls' soccer team. These girls are like in that 10 to 11 range. They come out, they climb ropes, they run laps, they do some agility drills, they jump, they throw things. The best thing about it is they stick around and want to do some more at the end of it. So I'm like, all right, I think we're doing something good here. Everybody's not asking, what time is it? Are we done? Are we done? People are sticking around. They want to try new things, this and that. It's a good indicator, right? Some of the younger brothers come in here, right? So these girls are starting to get to a point now where they're like 10, 11. Their younger brothers are like 9-ish, we'll say. They're working out. The gap's kind of there. The boys and the girls are kind of at the same level. According to Hettinger in 1961, up to age 10, no difference in strength between boys and girls. I remember field day, man. Back in the day, there would always be that. There would be, I'm in elementary school. The top three would be like girl, boy, boy, or something, or boy, girl, boy. There would always be that one girl that was just flying, man. One of the fastest girls in the school. Field day at age 12. 13, 14, it became, we have to separate boys and girls because the boys would end up, winning. This testosterone thing starts to take over a little bit like that. Kids start to mature, they get a little bit of those hormones pumping, and it improves their performance, okay? Another interesting point here I found from Hettinger. At about age 65, now he's talking about men, a man's muscular strength is approximately 80% of that shown between ages 20 and 30. He's saying 20 and 30 is that sweet spot where you're going to kind of maximize your strength as a male. When you're 65, your strength is going to be about 80% of that. So what does that mean? Between ages 20 and 30, or just in general, I think before age 30, I think it's important to drive up your strength level as high as possible. Because when you're 65, your strength level is going to be about 80% of that number. So just for basic math here, if my strength number is at 300 pounds, for, I don't know, I mean, 81, a squat, say, in theory, at that age of 65, man, I might be able to hit a 240-pound squat. Now, that's pretty impressive. It's not just like, it's like overall strength. He's talking about forearm extensors. He's talking about biceps, brachii. He's talking about the whole system, approximately 80% of what it would be, right? So it's not about weights lifted per se, but it's about if you were to test those joints out individually, that would be the 80%. So maybe my squat example might not have been the best because that was a total load. What he's talking about here is that 80% of joint strength individually looked at, all right, muscle strength at individual joints is 80%. Sorry about that confusion right there, everybody. Now, this is where we're getting into the minimum effective dose situation here. A quote from Hettinger, so that work can be done with the lowest possible degree of fatigue throughout the day. We're talking about efficiency right now. We're talking about minimum effective dose. If you could find out what you need to accomplish your task, you want to do the minimum amount of work, the minimum amount of time to accomplish that task, okay? Anything in excess of that is what I just said. It's excess, it's extra, it's not needed. If you could do one round of something, and that's going to get you your goal, your maximum level of strength, we'll say, you don't have to do 5 rounds. You do 1, and then you move on to the next thing. And what that next thing might be is recovery. That next thing might be spending time with your family. That next thing might be going for a walk. All right? We need to be efficient with all of our training. The minimum effective dose is a thing, all right? We need to follow that. We don't have to do more. We don't have to do extra. Moving here. Hettinger again. Increase in effort over normal daily activity and not by repetition of the normal daily activity. If we want to increase strength, we need to work above our normal daily activity. This is kind of obvious, but it needs to be said. If I'm in the gym and I do the normal, if I'm doing the same stuff over and over again, when daily muscle contractions, this is Hettinger again, when daily muscle contractions are reduced in their intensity to below 20% of the maximum, progressive loss of strength is observed. So when I'm doing, I'm going to tie those two things in. If I'm doing the same thing over and over again, eventually, if I'm lifting 40 pounds, eventually my strength's gonna peak. It's gonna spike, then it's gonna level, and I need to increase my resistance. If I don't increase my resistance, I'm not gonna see a change. When daily muscle contractions are reduced to about 20% of my max, then there's gonna be, I'm gonna start losing strength. I'm gonna start atrophying. My muscles are gonna start breaking down a little bit. So once your strength gets to a certain level, it's important to increase resistance, all right? So that way we can continue to improve, because if we don't and we work at normal daily activity, we're not gonna be able to see an increase in any kind of performance capacity there. All right, so muscle fat decreases in trained muscles. People ask the questions, why are we lifting heavy weights? Why are we doing this? I read in the magazine about toning this and toning that. A stronger muscle is going to be a more dense muscle. We're going to be able to decrease the fat in that muscle, and it's going to be able to get more compact, okay? It's going to look leaner, and it's going to get tighter. It's going to be toned, so to speak, all right? That's one thing Hettinger pointed in 1961, still true to this day. But yet, if you read a magazine, it's going to tell you something different, okay? Moving, greater work effort rather than longer duration of effort is the effective factor in increasing strength. I talked about this with the football practice earlier with the 1952 Olympic athletes. More effort does not mean more strength, more improvement. Sorry, more effort does, not longer duration. More effort is going to give you that strength rather than a longer training session, all right? Sorry about that. More effort, get in, get out, big bang for your buck, be efficient. Again, this seems to be a recurring thing for today. And now we're going to get on to what Hettinger thinks is the best way to determining the minimum training stimulus required to produce increase in muscular strength. That's what they're out to find right now. And they found that using isometric muscle contractions cause a greater increase in strength than isotonic contractions. An isometric is pulling yourself up, say on a chin-up bar, squeezing and holding. If you ever did that, or you ever seen somebody do it, their muscles start shaking, they're squeezing and holding, right? Or if you drop into the bottom of a squat and you hold the bottom position of a squat with a heavy load, all these stabilizers are going to start shaking, right? Hettinger found that isometric contractions cause a greater increase in strength. All right, so what does that mean? How do we apply that? What kind of number? What's the sweet spot here? He found only 40% of maximum isometric contractions produce the highest training effect possible. Training intensity must be increased at least every 14 days as strength itself increases. So we could work at 40 to 50%. If I squeeze as hard as I can, that's 100%. If I squeeze 50%, all right, so when I'm doing that chin-up hold, I am not squeezing as hard as I can. I'm just holding myself there. It might be about 50% of my maximum. We don't even know what our true maximum is, all right? He tested it in a lab, but me here, some guy lifting in a barn, I don't know what my 100% is. I'm probably working on 50%, but if I do that, I could get the greatest, the highest training effect possible. I don't have to work higher than 50% of isometric muscle contractions, okay? Training intensity must be increased at least every 14 days as strength itself increases. Remember what we said now. We have to increase the training stimulus. If I am doing a chin-up hold, right, this is just the example I'm going to use for today. The chin-up hold, I need to add weight to it every 14 days. If I could do it, I could add weight or I could add some time. It was found that it is unnecessary to train to the point of complete fatigue in order to stimulate increased muscular strength. As you can see, there's a recurring theme here that is brought up over and over again over the course of this book, and it's over the course of this podcast here because it is important. All right. A maximum isometric muscle contraction for only 1 to 2 seconds is sufficient to provide a training stimulus. If you're pushing against an object as hard as you can here, in that sweet spot, right? Sorry, not as hard as you can. If you're trying to push against an immovable object, that's enough to give you a training stimulus for as little as 1 to 2 seconds based off of his research. Now, when I hear that, it's going to be hard to sell that, even to my mind here in the training system. If I'm like, how am I going to apply this concept? 1 to 2 seconds? I don't know. But if you do that once a day, listen here, 1 training stimulus per day gave maximum increase. 1 training stimulus. He defined training stimulus as a 1 to 2 second maximum isometric muscle contraction. If you did this every other day, you're going to approximately hit about 80% of what you could be if you did it every day. If you did it twice a week, it's roughly 60% of what you'd be capable of. If you did it once a week, it's about 40% increase, right? But if you want to get that, 100% increase, so to speak, if you did this once a day, if I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a chin-up hold once a day, all right, I'm going to get the maximum training effect that I can. This whole idea, I talked to people in the past, and I probably brought it up in this podcast of if you have a chin-up bar in your house, walk by, do a chin-up, right? If you did that every day, your chin-ups are going to improve. I think that concept, that once-a-day thing, I think I got it from Dan John. I imagine Dan John got it from reading this Physiology of Strength book where it talks about 1 training stimulus per day and the value of that. Him and Pavel Sassoulain, the kettlebell guy, they use the term grease in the groove, where don't let that groove get rusty, man. Practice it a little bit every day, and you're going to be able to get, you're going to be able to reach maximum training ability, okay? And if you do this once a week, like I said, it's 40%. If you wait longer than that, the training effect, there will be no training effect if the interval's too long in between sessions. So we got to keep that groove greased up and not let it get rusty, like I was just saying there, all right? Now, this was interesting here, and he didn't go into too much detail, but in his studies here, when they were testing strength, the lowest trainability levels that they found were in December, January, and February. And that's the time of the year that everybody's trying to get fit, right? It's the winter months, man. Everybody goes into maybe hibernation mode. We try to store a little bit of extra body weight because it's cold. The days get longer. I'm not really sure, He didn't go into detail or speculate on why he thought that. And then our highest trainability levels are in the summer and in the fall, which is now, right? Summer's about to end here in Pennsylvania. We're about to move into the fall. This is the time to cash in with these big things here. He actually moved on then too about using these isometric contractions to heal up basically. If you're coming back from an injury, you could get maximum training effect by doing isometric contractions, which is little to no. It's not incredibly taxing in terms of time, time commitment, and just in physical effort here, where we talked about 1 to 2 seconds of maximal contraction. So daily training sessions. He's talking about. They put plaster casts on in individuals for a week. Daily training sessions started immediately after the plaster cast was taken off. Normal strength was reached in about 10 days. So if you have a cast on, you get the cast off. You could get your strength level back if you train appropriately in about 10 days, okay? So, but again, the cast was only on for a week in their example here. If you have the cast on longer, it's going to take a longer time to recover. Delorme. Thomas Delorme again. Muscle contraction against the resistance of the cast itself, muscle strength can be maintained. So you think about this now. If you have a cast on and you start to do some isometric contractions against your cast, if you're pushing or you're squeezing or you're doing whatever that you could do that's not going to cause further harm, your strength can be maintained. Another thing that you can do here that I picked up in the past is that training the non-injured limb. You have this stuff going on from your brain. Your brain sending signals to your body. So if you are injured, you have the cast on. If you have a splint, whatever it may be, the isometric contractions work. In addition to that, if you train the non-injured limb, so if my right arm is in a cast, if I train my non-injured limb by doing whatever, a bench press, a one-arm row, an overhead press, if I train that arm, my brain is sending signals down. It's primarily going to go to that working limb, but some of this other stuff kind of branches off to the rest of the body. It might branch off into that other limb, and it might stimulate some growth in that area too. And it might be able to fight off the negative effects that are going to occur from not using that limb with full stuff, right? So if you have an injury at the elbow or at the wrist, at the wrist or in the hand, you might be able to squeeze your bicep here, right, as hard as you can in that injured hand, or you might be able to push against your plaster cast a little bit. Just for a little bit, right? And you're going to be able to come back when you get that cast off ready to rock. In addition, train the non-injured limb, and some of those signals sent from the brain down might get into that injured arm, and you might be able to stimulate a little bit of growth or a little bit of activation in that arm. Hettinger does not talk about that, but it's just in some other research. I don't recall where I read it, and I remember back in college I did a little bit of a research study on it. Asked the athletic trainer at the school that I was talking about, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I did a big project on this." She had some good support too, and so it's a thing, man. If you are injured, don't just take that as time to sit on the couch and let your muscles atrophy. There's ways you could train that injured limb even. All right, train the non-injured limb, train the injured limb a little bit with some isometrics, pushing against the cast, squeezing adjoining muscles, and it's got, if I squeeze my bicep, that activation right there in that bicep is going to irradiate to the forearm and maybe even into that hand where the muscles in the hand could get some work. If you do have a broken hand, you could come back feeling like a champ, right? And then lastly, as we try to sum this up here, we have discussed some problems in muscle strength and have analyzed the basic question about real training stimulus. Several conclusions have been reached, all right? So now we're at the end of the book here. A lot of research went on. Maximum resistance exercises for muscle strength in children. He has some things, push and pull and tug of war, things like that, all right? And now, as we advance here, in conclusion, it has been shown that muscle tension, i.e. the training strength, seems to be the important point in muscle training. Muscle tension. How much tension are you having? Full body tension when you're doing exercise. If you're pressing a bar overhead, you're not loose in the legs. You squeeze your thighs, you squeeze your glutes, you squeeze your midsection, you squeeze everything to get that load overhead. When you're bench pressing, you don't want your legs to be just kind of like noodles, just kind of floating there. All right, you want to drive into the ground. You want to get a leg drive. You want to squeeze the butt. You want tension in the body. If we want to improve strength, we need to have total body tension. The minimum training stimulus and muscle tension is about 1/3 of the maximum strength obtainable in voluntary isometric muscle contractions. And an exertion of 40 to 50% of the current maximum strength of the muscle gives the muscle the maximum obtainable training effect. Every day, you could activate that. You could hit that 40 to 50% mark. You could, without totally wiping yourself out. You could increase strength. You could apply this today. You could get better at things like a chin-up by just holding some isometrics every day for a limited amount of time. It is unnecessary, number 3 here, it is unnecessary to keep up this tension to the point of complete fatigue of the muscle to get the maximum training effect. A period representing 10 to 20% of the time it takes to reach complete fatigue of the muscle, which prevents further holding of muscle tension, is enough to reach the maximum obtainable training effect. So if you could hold the chin up, chin above the bar position for 20 seconds, all right, 20% of that would be 1/5 of 24 seconds. You could get the maximum training effect by squeezing and holding for 4 seconds on the regular, every day. One training, and this is part 4 again, like I've said like 95 times probably on this podcast, one single training stimulus per day is adequate for the maximum obtainable training effect for a certain muscle group in a certain individual during a certain time. For practical purposes, in order to train the muscle for increasing muscle strength, we suggest exercising the muscle group, which is to be trained by making one isometric muscle contraction, one maximum muscle contraction against the resistance each day. What does that mean? Constant daily practice. Push yourself. Do something challenging every day. You want to improve something, you're going to need some maximum, you're going to need to do some maximum isometric muscle contractions according to Hettinger. All right? Love it. Physiology of Strength, 1961 classic. If you're in the strength game, man, I would read it because there's some great stuff in there. I love some of this stuff that lasts the test of time, all right? Now, Chris Wilk Podcast, man. Like it, subscribe to it. Apple, Google. We're on YouTube, man. Check it out. Where else are we? Stitcher, Spotify, all those things. Like it, subscribe to it. chrisflick.net. Weekly word. Enter your email. You get a weekly newsletter from me talking about all the randomness that I'm doing in my life, all right? Books I've been reading, what I've been watching, what I've been listening to, what I've been thinking about. Yeah, just kind of go with it from there, man. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Peace, everybody. Have a wonderful day.